Alright, so this week the theme is pretty awesome. It is the weather in May. So if you're planning to travel in New Zealand and you don't want to see any other tourists, if you want to come in the low season of New Zealand, and if you also want to save a lot of money on travel, well, therefore May is a pretty good month to travel. It is admittedly one of the rainiest months. However, the weather in New Zealand is ever changing, so you may be able to make the most out of an epic holiday in New Zealand in May. So what we're going to do today is we're going to be talking about all the weather patterns, rainfalls, everything you need to know, and we're even going to share some travel tips if you're planning to come to New Zealand in May. Alright, so as you guys keep on going with some awesome New Zealand travel questions, we're going to get started with our segment, and we're going to begin with some tips for visiting New Zealand in May. And in order to give you a few tips for visiting New Zealand in May, here's the beautiful Laura.
All right, our first tip for traveling in May is to be prepared for 4 seasons in a day, which is kind of a famous saying about the weather in New Zealand, is that the weather's very changeable. So when you're out and about exploring New Zealand each day, make sure that you have a day pack with you. And in that day pack, you're carrying maybe an extra layer, a rain jacket. So you have space in there even to take off a layer if it gets too hot. So just be prepared for any weather. And yeah, be prepared with a day pack as you are out in the great outdoors. Our next tip is to consider May as the low season in New Zealand. So that means that there's less tourists and even locals traveling around the country. That's a great time to get cheaper car rentals. You can also travel a bit more spontaneously. So if you're not really wanting to book your accommodation in certain places too early in advance, then you can usually wait a little bit, closer to the date in May compared to other months throughout in New Zealand. So yeah, May is the low season, and it means that you can be a bit more relaxed on your travel planning. If you're driving to some of the more mountainous regions, for instance, if you're on the South Island traveling over, say, Arthur's Pass or Haas Pass, Linda's Pass, all that sort of thing, then just look out for travel warnings. If there has been snow that has landed on those sort of high altitude regions, you might need to have snow chains if you are passing over there and there has been snow. So just keep an eye on sort of travel warnings for those areas. If you're doing a working holiday in New Zealand and you're looking to sort of work for the ski season, maybe work in some ski fields, then May is a good time to actually start applying for those jobs. It's a bit earlier than the season is starting, but you need to get in there early and sort of set up your set up all the living, the job and everything like that early before the ski season actually starts. And if you're doing any long hikes, make sure that you are checking for track updates on the Department of Conservation website. There's interchangeable weather, which can sometimes lead to track closures, that sort of thing. So just before you're about to set off on a hike, make sure that you look for any red alerts on the Department of Conservation website and make sure that the track is ready to go.
As you guys continue asking us all your questions about traveling in New Zealand, we'll continue with our theme of the week, which is about traveling in New Zealand in May. And we're going to begin with, with the typical temperatures that you can expect in May. Laura, take position. Okay, so the weather in May is basically the last month of autumn, so you can expect a significant amount of rain. We're getting closer to winter, so you will find warmer and technically for the average masses, I technically like winter, but for the average masses you will find better weather usually on the North Island as opposed to the South Island. But nevertheless, let's go over some of the average temperature you can expect in New Zealand region by region. So if we begin with the northern New Zealand, which is Northland, Auckland and Tauranga, you can expect about 14 degrees Celsius, which is about 57 degrees Fahrenheit on average. In central North Island, which is Hamilton, Taupo and Rotorua, you can expect about 10 degrees Celsius, which is around 50 degrees Fahrenheit. If you are heading to southwest North Island in beautiful New Plymouth, Palmerston North, or in the capital city of Wellington, you can expect 12 degrees Celsius, which is 54 degrees Fahrenheit. And last section of the Northern, we have Eastern Northern, which is Gisborne, Napier, and Wairarapa. And again, that's about 12 degrees Celsius, which is 54 degrees Fahrenheit on average. So as you can tell, the northern end of New Zealand has, like the lowest of all the average regions will be the central northern end with about 10 degrees Celsius, which is 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's still relatively mild. You won't get too cold. Now let's head to the south island of New Zealand, and let's begin with northern South Island, which is Blenheim and Nelson, where you can also expect about 10 degrees Celsius, which is about 50 degrees Fahrenheit on average in the month of May. In northern South Island, in western South Island, my apologies, which is Westport, Hokitika and Milford Sound, the temperatures are going to be ranging between 8 degrees Celsius to 10 degrees Celsius, which is 46 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit on average in the month of May. In eastern South Island, which is Kaikoura, where you can see the beautiful dusky dolphin we saw earlier on in this live show. Christchurch and Timaru, you can expect about 9 degrees Celsius, which is about 48 degrees Fahrenheit. In the inland South Island, which is Lake Tekapo, Queenstown, Alexandra, all those hotspots, the temperatures are going to range on average between 4 to 6 degrees Celsius, which is 39 to 43 degrees Fahrenheit. And finally, in southern New Zealand, which is Dunedin, Invercargill, and all the way to my favorite hotspot, Stewart Island, that's about 9 degrees Celsius, which is 48 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, all those temperatures are the temperatures that you can expect on average in the month of May in New Zealand during the daytime. We're not talking about night time at all. Here you go. Moving on. So as you guys continue with your questions about traveling in New Zealand, we'll continue with our theme of the week. And now we're going to talk about the other weather patterns that you can expect in New Zealand in May. And we're going to talk mainly about rainfalls. So one thing to note about rainfalls in May is that, well, they're going to be much more frequent than in other months. And that you will be expecting... Laura, do you want to get yourself set up? I'm padding while you go get set up.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay, so you're expecting other patterns.
I was waiting for the, go, Laura, go. Whoops.
All right. Anyway, Laura's ready. So let's talk about rainfall in May. So here are the average.
Padding, go on. I liked what you were going to say.
On average, what you can expect as rainfall region by region all around New Zealand in the month of May. Let's begin with northern New Zealand, which is Northland, Auckland and Tauranga. It's usually about 120 millimeters of rain, which is 4.7 inches. I still can't get over that. Central Hamilton, Central Northern, it's Hamilton, Taupo and Rotorua. This is a nonsense show right here. You can expect 100 millimeters of rain, which is 4 inches on average. In the southwest North Island, New Plymouth, Palmerston North and Wellington expect about 120 millimeters worth of rain, which is 4.7 inches. In eastern North Island, we're looking at Gisborne, Napier and Wairarapa. You can expect something much drier at around 60 millimeters of rain, which is 2.4 inches on average. Alright, so let's head to the South Island of New Zealand and have weather patterns all over the place. Brace yourself. Okay, so we're going to begin with northern South Island, with Blenheim and Nelson, 80 millimeters worth of rain, which is about 3 inches. In the west coast, so western South Island, that's Westport, Hokitika, all the way down to the Fiordland National Park and the ever so popular Milford Sounds, you can expect between 250 to 450 millimeters. That's 10 to 18 inches worth of rain. So big difference from literally the next door region. Let's go back over the Southern Alps, and we're having the eastern South Island, Kaikoura, Christchurch and Timaru, which is about 60 millimeters worth of rain, which is 2.4 inches. In inland South Island, which is Lake Tekapo, Queenstown and Alexandra, you can expect between 30 to 50 millimeters worth of rain, which is 1 to 2 inches. And finally, in southern New Zealand, Dunedin and Invercargill, we have about 70 millimeters worth of rain, which is 2.7 inches on average. Alright, so that's what you can expect rain-wise in New Zealand. during the month of May. Here you go. I definitely got taken from left field right here.
I just didn't want to go too soon. I was waiting for you, Robin.
It's okay. Usually we're perfectly in sync.
Yeah,
Let's be honest. It's just a one-off, and it shows you guys that despite the fact that we've been doing those live shows for literally ever, it feels like
Literally.
Well, we've done more than 230, so we've done that for for about 5 years now. We still not perfectly in sync. So let's continue with our coverage of traveling in New Zealand in May, and let's talk about the best places to visit in May. And today we're going to go back and forth, so we're going to begin with the beautiful Laura. Laura, what is your favorite place to visit in May?
One really awesome place to visit in May is the capital of New Zealand, which is Wellington. So for those, sporadic days where you don't know what the weather's going to do, Wellington has various indoor attractions as well as amazing outdoor attractions. And May can be a good time to experience it all in Wellington.
Another great place to visit in May is the ever so popular Coromandel Peninsula. So the Coromandel Peninsula is usually really, really busy, especially on good weather day, because it's basically the escape from Aucklanders. They just take a road trip and go explore that. So if you want to see it at its quietest, which is the best way to see it, go explore the Coromandel. You can go and dig your own hot pool at Hot Water Beach, which is really fun to do on a cold, rainy day. Head to Cathedral Cove if you want to see some of the filming location from the movie Narnia, or if you don't care about Narnia, a really amazing looking beach. And you can also check out some beautiful Kauri forests, which are those massive towering trees, which are definitely worth checking out.
Okay, next up we have Waitomo. So whatever the weather, the cave tours at Waitomo are usually running. So you can do various different caving tours where you can throw in a wetsuit, go underground tubing, you can do abseiling, all sorts of amazing caving adventures. But if you don't want to get wet, there's also the option to do walking tours in the caves and do a nice gentle boat tour under the glowworms. So you can do all that no matter what the weather's doing during May.
And so I was talking about the weather in the South Island, especially the rainfall. So if you are in the South Island in the month of May, you're gonna get wet. But one of the driest part of the South Island is actually the town of Alexandra. As I was mentioning, it only gets between 30 to 50 millimeters of rain in the whole month. So therefore, it's a great place to hang out. It has more clement weather, yes, but it also has a lot of great things to do. It's not too far from some amazing hot spots such as Lake Tekapo, but it also has amazing cycle trails. So if you want to get a bit of exercise during the month of May, well, check out the town of Alexandra.
And finally, we have Dunedin, which is another city to explore. This one's in the South Island, and it has a good sort of variety of indoor and outdoor experiences as well, just like Wellington. But outdoors, you can go check out the Otago Peninsula, which is full of different wildlife. You can see seals, penguins, all that good stuff. But on those rainy days, you can always head into the various museums that there are, or go check out the bars and eateries of the Octagon.
Here you go, those are our favorite places to visit in New Zealand in May. So Laura, is there a few things that one must pack before traveling in New Zealand in May to wrap us up?
Yes, there are several things one must pack, several seasonal things that is always good to take. So number one on the list should be a rain jacket. It can rain at any time when you're out and about while you're traveling in May, so you definitely want to make sure that you have a rain jacket. Make sure you have some warm mid-layers. So what I mean by mid-layers is more like what I'm wearing now, just like sort of a warm hoodie or a warm sort of jumper, something that you can throw on top of your other clothes just if you need that extra little bit of warmth while you're out and about. We also recommend actually having some thermal underlayers, so that's more like, a nice warm long sleeve top or even a warm sort of wool t-shirt or something. Usually we say cotton's not so good, keeping yourself warm while in New Zealand. So if you can go for something like wool or merino wool, or there's other more synthetic fabrics as well, then yeah, that's usually a good idea. So starting off with like a thermal underlayer is a good idea. In terms of socks, wool socks is good. If you do end up getting your feet wet, then at least wool socks dry out better. They keep your feet warmer than cotton socks. As I mentioned earlier in the video, waterproof hiking shoes or hiking boots is an absolute must, so that, you know, when it is raining, you know, the water just repels off the shoes and you're not getting that soaking into your feet, because that is never fun, and that just keeps your whole body cold once your feet get wet. And then finally, you do want to take some swimwear to New Zealand in May, even though the temperatures are getting colder. But New Zealand has lots of reasons to throw on your swimwear, so especially hot pools is one thing. So if you want to get out of the cold into a nice warm hot pool, there's options for that. But also if you want to do some of the adventure activities, like we talked about caving in Waitomo, but even whitewater rafting is still happening in May, and canyoning, that sort of thing, then you can do that in May, and it's still really enjoyable to do, even though, you know, we're at the end of autumn and we're heading into the winter season.
Hey, here are the things that you need to pack for traveling in May, and that's going to wrap us up for our coverage of traveling in New Zealand in May. There is plenty more information on NZ Pocket Guide. If you want to check that out, there's a link in the description of this video.